Appreciate that. Trustee Taylor, will you please convene the Committee on Educational Policy?
Thank you, Chair Day, and good morning, everybody. My pleasure to convene the Committee on Educational Policy and ask us to come to order. We will now invite public comment on the various items before us today. We have 25 speakers today. I would ask that you each take 1 minute to lay into us about whatever is on your mind. So we'll begin first, and I'll call you out in groups of 4 or 5. Kevin Tromer, Micah Ali, Natalie Roca, and Carla Lopez Valdez. And either side, please begin. Oh, and make sure you're on, and always please introduce yourself so we get your name. Yeah, perfect.
Good morning. My name is Kevin Tromer. I'm here on behalf of the California Association of Black School Educators, as well as the Compton Unified School District. We applaud the decision to pump the brakes on the quantitative reasoning item today to allow for a third-party analysis, and appreciate you listening to the strong concerns of school districts and local communities. Indeed, we owe it to our students to ensure that we're thoughtful and deliberate as we move forward, and that's why it's so important to take the time to fully research and study the proposal's impact on student achievement and college access. However, due to the impact on K-12 districts, it's imperative that they're amply represented on the steering committee, ensuring their voices are heard. Thank you again for listening to our concerns and postponing today's item. Thank you.
Thank you for your thoughtful comments, Mr. Tromer. Please begin.
Good morning. My name is Carla Lopez, and I serve the Associate Director of Civic Engagement for the Alliance for a Better Community. ABC is an advocacy organization focused on promoting the economic prosperity of the Latino community in the Los Angeles region, inclusive of an improved quality of life for Latinos in education, health, and civic engagement. We would like to thank the Board of Trustees today for considering the resolution set forth by the Chancellor's Office that aims to acknowledge and address key concerns on CSU eligibility. We at ABC see this as a pause rather than the full rejection of a poorly informed proposal that would make it more challenging for Latino students to access higher education. While we are disappointed that this issue has not been laid to rest, we support the analysis that will assess the implementation impact. We hope the analysis is conducted in a manner that it is overseen and directed by a steering committee made by community partners, such as those represented here today. We also hope that this independent analysis will set the goal of preserving equal opportunity to access and success at the CSU, especially for California students of color and students from low-income communities. Thank you very much.
Lopez Valdez. Micah Ali or Natalie Rocha? All right, moving on. Michael Espinosa, Juana Iris Mesa, Andrew Flores, or Janae Fraser. In any particular order at either microphone. Different list now. Keeping on, Nathan Carbajal, Kalani Robinson, or Alicia Smith Arriaga.
They're outside. I'll go get them.
Okay. Well, we'll keep going to see who's here. Michelle Siqueiros. Michelle, I saw you. Hi, please introduce yourself.
Hi, Alicia Smith Arriaga at Trust West. Education Trust West works for the high academic achievement of all students from pre-K through college, and we are unapologetic about exposing opportunity and achievement gaps for students of color and low-income students. We are proud to have joined over 100 civil rights and education advocates, the California Teachers Association, school districts, school boards, and administrators across the state to raise concerns about the proposed quantitative reasoning proposal. Such a shift in the CSU's admission policy could have made it harder for students of color and low-income students to get into CSU. As a former teacher, math major, and daughter of the civil rights movement, I know that any major admissions change has to be data-driven, evidence-based, and centered on equity. We are encouraged about the Chancellor's recent decision to delay the quantitative reasoning proposal and instead call for a year-long independent study. The analysis is a positive step to ensure educational equity and should include high school students' eligibility, application, and admissions rates broken out by race, region, and income. It should also confirm whether additional math, science, and/or quantitative reasoning beyond the 5.5 years is also required. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith-Arriaga. All right, Michelle Siqueiros.
Good morning, Lieutenant Governor Kanulakis, Chairman Adam Day, Board of Trustee members, and Chancellor White. My name is Michelle Siqueiros. I'm president of the Campaign for College Opportunity, and I'm here today to thank you for your revised action on the quantitative reasoning proposal. I truly appreciate the recognition that any change in admissions should meet a much higher bar of proof and evidence before making a change that affects all Californians. I appreciate the recognition that transparent and independent research is necessary to provide that proof, and that research must be conducted in a way that validates and answers the very first question we've asked of you since this conversation started a year ago. Why? Why this solution? We remain unconvinced that an additional year of math, science, or quantitative reasoning is the reason students who already take a lot of math, science, and quantitative reasoning are not succeeding at the CSU. We hope that independent research can quantify what impact this solution would have in terms of access and admissions to the CSU for Latinx, Black, Native American, low-income Californians, and how we'll ensure that this won't have disproportionate impact depending on what students' race, ethnicity, zip code is. Finally, I'll just end by saying I hope we can agree on two things. First, that the CSU can control and improve being a student-ready institution. And second, that there is no inclusive or authentic access that disproportionately leaves out Latinx, Native American, Black, low-income Californians from our CSU system. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Please introduce yourself. Not on. Now,
Hello. Oh, good morning, y'all. I'm Nathan Carvajal. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm from Cal State Long Beach, and I'm a SQE leader. And I just came here to speak upon the quantitative reasoning proposition. And I'm here to oppose the proposed quantitative reasoning requirement. As it was brought up in the last BOT meeting, high schools are currently not equipped to handle this proposed requirement due to funding, lack of teachers, and overall the underfunded school system within the California state. This will severely impact students of color who are already attending underfunded schools with overworked teachers. Thus, this additional requirement will only further restrict students of color from enrolling into a Cal State. Furthermore, not all majors require a high level of math. Personally, I'm a Chicano Latino Studies major, so that type of math requirement will not really help me at all in this major or in my future plans in life. So therefore, I'm urging that this requirement be dropped altogether, not only for me, but also for the future students who are coming to the CSU system and those students of color.
thank you, Mr. Carvajal, for your thoughtful comments. I'm going to go down the list one more time because I know some folks had a little bit of a delay getting in. Well, what's your name?
My name's Kalani Robinson.
Very well. Go ahead, Ms. Robinson.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Kalani Robinson. I'm an SQE rep from Cal State LA, and I'm here to oppose the quantitative reasoning requirement. I've been in this room with you all before opposing this decision, and every time I walk in this room, I hope to change one of your minds each at a time. If I have not persuaded you yet, hopefully this will. I understand that some of you in this room may have the best intentions with signing off on this proposal. While I believe that Black and brown teens are capable of any and everything, one thing we must acknowledge is that if they are not being led and accepted into our institutions, then the system needs to take accountability for failing them, not the other way around. In the LA County alone, we have more people in poverty, low income, or on government assistance and Skid Row than we do in middle class or the rich. To ask of these students to do more than what the system is capable of doing is a contradiction, and it defeats the entire purpose of the Cal State universities, which is to serve students in those university communities. But we cannot accomplish this goal if we are too busy trying to weed them out. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Robinson. I'm going to call a few more names of folks maybe had a hard time getting in. Before going, Micah Ali, Natalie Rocha, Michael Espinosa, Juana Iris Mesa, Andrew Flores, and Journey Frazier. Are any of you here by any chance? All right, we'll continue down the sign-up list then. Liz Velasquez, Manuel Colon, Reverend Sam Casey, and Devona Robertson. Any of those folks in any particular order? Oh, got to make sure the red light's on. Yep, perfect.
Are we good?
Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Manuel Colon, and I'm the Chief Academic Officer for the Anaheim Union High School District. I'm here on behalf of our Superintendent, Michael Matsuda. As a school district committed to ensuring college, career, and life readiness and success for our students, we would like to thank you for taking your time and ask you approve a third-party independent analysis and establish a steering committee that will guide potential next steps for the QR admissions proposal. At a time when California continues to be plagued by wide racial ethnic gaps in enrollment and success at public four-year universities, our higher education systems must ensure that policies do not unfairly create unnecessary obstacles for students on the way to earning a college degree. Given the proud history, tradition, and mission of CSU to serve as an open access university, we ask you to not require the fourth year of math quantitative reasoning. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Is Liz Velasquez here, Michelle? Siqueiros. Liz Velasquez, is she here? My eyes aren't that good, I can't see. Okay, we'll keep on. Reverend Sam Casey or Devona Robertson? Seeing none. Felicia Jones, Daniela Hernandez, Guadalupe Morales.
Is it on? Okay. Felicia Jones with Congregations Organized for Prophetic Engagement, COPE. I am delighted to be here today and so grateful for the reconsideration to actually do the due diligence on this proposal to require quantitative reasoning as an A through G requirement. We've been here before and we are again urging this body to consider access for all. We know that this is really important and we thank you for taking the time to do the due diligence. But when we come before this body and we think about what college access means, we're thinking about the fact that a door into college is also not a door into prison. And for the countless families that we serve who want their students to have an opportunity, this critical decision makes the difference. And we don't see it just as QR, we see it as the possibility for creativity. We see it as the possibility for friendships. We see it as the possibility for enlightenment to happen for students when they walk on that campus. And when we're saying we need access for all, this is what we're asking for. And we have amassed a huge political will around this issue. And I think we can continue to do the same as we monitor what happens. But we need to do more than this. We need to take money away from our prisons and actually build more schools. We need another university, and we can do so much more. We appreciate what has happened thus far. We appreciate that you heard our families, you hear us.
Thank you.
And we
Michelle.
hope you'll continue to hear us.
Thank you very much. No, you want the red light on? Yeah. There you go.
Go.
You're all
Okay.
set.
Good morning. My name is Daniela Hernandez, and I am the Director of Youth Organizing at Inner City Struggle, a community-based organization in the East Side that organizes with youth, parents, and community residents towards education and racial justice. I want to start off by thanking the Board of Trustees for not making a rush decision on the fourth-year QR proposal that will impact future generations of CSU students. Thank you for listening to stakeholders that have organized and demanded a deeper study on the impacts of the policy. We believe this is a step towards supporting student success instead of limiting access. Over the past several months, you've heard from students, parents, professors, and educational advocates on the need for more investments like retention programs, high school pathway programs, and ethnic studies, not more barriers. As you move forward with an independent study, we need to make sure that these stakeholders are included in the steering committee, and that such study analyzes the inequity for low-income and students of color. We stand eager to work with the Board of Trustees to ensure access for all to the People's University. Thank you.
Nope. Leave the red light on. Yeah, perfect.
Good morning. My name is Guadalupe Morales. I am a student at CSU Long Beach, and I am a community organizer with Inner City Struggle. I've been giving public comment since August, and I am glad that Chancellor White proposed a resolution to first study the impact before voting. My community members do not want changes to the CSU admissions requirement because students of color will be disproportionately impacted, and 7 years is not enough to mend years of historically being disinvested communities. Inner City Struggle youth leaders from 5 Eastside high schools created a petition. 255 students, or over 255 students, are against CSU admission changes. I ask that the CSU ensures community involvement and transparency for the study. We want to make sure that the study isn't only being done in affluent communities where the results will show some kind of bias and will only prove their point to be correct. As a CSU student, I would like to see more support towards first-generation low-income students, like tutoring, EOP, and ethnic studies. Ethnic studies can play a huge role on students as they feel represented. Unfortunately, many of these programs are underfunded. By having more people of color being taught their own history, it empowers and serves as a motivation to do better in college. I know because I've taken these courses myself, and these have really helped me. These are some of the recommendations that the CSU can do to support their students instead of imposing another barrier onto higher education. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Morales. Maria Leon, Jesse Melgares, and Kevin Weir.
Good morning. Kevin Weir, Vice President for California Faculty Association, Professor of Sociology at Sacramento State. As faculty, as academics, we are empirically driven creatures. We are in favor of study, we're in favor of data, we're in favor of sound analysis, and we applaud the move to delay this implementation as we called for over the last several meetings. However, unless and until that analysis proves that there will be no disparate impact by race, by class, or by rurality, we will remain opposed to this proposal. Thank you.
Maria Leon or Jesse Melgares, are you here by any chance? All right, Kimberly Fuentes, Araceli Simeon, Viviana Lopez, and Ann Hawthorne. Boy, a lot of no-shows today. Please begin.
Hi, I'm Ann Hawthorne. I'm here from the Urban Foundation in Kid City. We work with high school students. 30% of our students enroll in the CSU and graduate to work in education, law, in labs, and entertainment, etc. This is, the road to college has a lot of obstacles. These are serious, hardworking students who have a lot to give back to our community. And I want to thank the CSU trustees for delaying the implementation of this proposal until there's a very thorough analysis of how it will affect all of our students. We don't need to get to add more obstacles. This is the education at a CSU is truly a transformational, life-changing experience for low-income and first-generation students, and it changes the trajectory of their entire families. Please conduct a careful analysis, and I urge you to include students and parents in your steering committee. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Hawthorne. Nope, need the red button on. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Natalie Rocha, Field Deputy for LA Unified School Board Member Monica Garcia. The following is a statement from Ms. Garcia. I commend and thank the Chancellor and Cal State Board of Trustees for responding thoughtfully to our community of children and youth advocates. We are partners in preparing our young people for career and life, and this action to delay the vote until 2022 by the California State University leadership will impact the lives of many of our students in the Los Angeles Unified School District. I am proud to have supported our community partners by authoring the resolution to oppose this proposal back in June of 2019. Through the coalition of organizations such as Education Trust West, Campaign for College Opportunity, Inner City Struggle, Community Coalition, Labor Partners, and many, many others, we are able to celebrate this victory for our students and families.
Thank you very much. Ms. Rocha. Hi, were you signed up to speak?
I was. My name was called, but I wasn't quite here. Michael Espinoza.
Very good. Please begin, Mr. Espinoza.
Okay, good morning, Chancellor and trustees. Mike Espinoza, I'm the Executive Director for Go Public Schools Fresno. We'd like to thank you for this, for studying the impact of the policy before writing into law. We'd like to ensure that any proposed admissions changes do not limit access for students. We're excited that the board chose to delay to study the impact of this proposed change on this, and we applaud your decision. In addition, we'd invite a chance to have our folks be part of the steering committee that's overseeing the study of this work. We represent students and parents and educators in the Fresno area. So thank you again for making this decision.
Thank you for joining us. Okay, well, Chair Day, oh, nope. Is there somebody else?
There's one more.
All right. Please approach and remember to introduce yourself.
Hola, buenos días. Mi nombre es Juana Iris Mesa. Soy miembro orgulloso de Go Public School Fresno. Estoy aquí para aplaudir la decisión del canciller y los fideicomisarios de la Universidad Estatal de California por su decisión de estudiar el impacto del cambio político de admisión propuesto antes de ponerlo en vigor. Como madre de 4 niños que actualmente asisten a las escuelas del Distrito Unificado de Fresno, mi gran esperanza es que todos mis hijos vayan a la universidad y sigan una carrera de su elección. El cambio de póliza de admisión propuesto habría impactado directamente a mis hijos cuando comenzaran a postularse en las escuelas de la Universidad Estatal de California como Fresno State. Estoy agradecida de que el liderazgo de la Universidad Estatal de California haya decidido tomarse un momento para evaluar el impacto de este cambio de política, porque eso podría afectar directamente a mis hijos para asistir a una Universidad Estatal de California. Nuevamente, en nombre de Go Public School Fresno, gracias por esta decisión y agradeceríamos mucho la oportunidad de servir en el comité directivo que supervisa el alcance de las escuelas y las comunidades. Gracias.
Gracias, señora Mesa, para su comentario y observación. Next speaker.
Hi, my name is Kimberly Fuentes, and I'm with California LULAC. We want to commend the CSU Chancellor's Office for reconsidering such a swift vote on the quantitative reasoning proposal, and instead choosing an outlook that will have students' success and equity at the forefront of discussions. In the implementation committee, we hope that members will exude cultural competency and will work to understand the reality for some of our students. It all comes down to one fundamental point, and that is an access to a better life. We look forward to partnering with you all on these efforts. And on my last point, I would like to emphasize that during these discussions, we consider the importance of a peer mentor, especially in the STEM courses. Specifically, retention rates at Cal State Channel Islands, where I am an alumni, they significantly improved at both the first-year freshman level and transfer year seminars when they had an embedded peer mentor. I saw firsthand the difference of what that is for students to have the assistance in these courses when they're falling between the pipelines. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your thoughtful comments. Okay. Is there one more person? I know some folks had a hard time getting through. All right. I think we're going to now move forward. And again, thanks for everybody for very thoughtful participation this morning. It's now time for the committee to consider the consent agenda. The consent agenda only includes the minutes from the November 2019 meeting. Is there an objection to the approval of the consent agenda? Very well. We've got a motion second. I'm assuming everybody's in favor. Say aye. Aye. Excellent. All right. We are going to move forward to 3 discussion items this morning. Item 2 is a discussion of an information item on an amendment to Title V regarding occupational therapy doctorate. The item is being presented by Lauren Blanchard, Executive VP and Provost, and Allison Wren, our Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs. Mr. Blanchard, please begin.
Thank you so much, Chair Taylor. Recently, the American Council for Occupational Therapy Education, the accrediting body for the profession of occupational therapy, determined that the doctorate will now become the primary entry degree in order to become a certified occupational therapist beginning in 2027. To ensure that the CSU is able to continue meeting the workforce demand for these highly sought-after healthcare specialists, the CSU Board of Trustees sponsored legislation to grant the CSU authority to offer the doctoral degree in occupational therapy called the Occupational Therapy Doctorate, or OTD. This bill was passed by the legislature and signed into law by the governor, amending state education code regarding CSU OTD degree programs. The amendments introduced today as an information item are proposed to bring Title V regulations into alignment with the now amended state education code. Dr. Allison Wren, Associate Vice Chancellor for Academic Programs, Innovations, and Faculty Development, will now provide us a brief overview of this occupational therapy program and the proposed update to Title V. Dr. Wren.
Thank you, Dr. Blanchard. Occupational therapists are healthcare professionals who work with people of all ages and conditions to enhance their ability to perform their daily activities. Children with disabilities, people recovering from injuries, and older adults experiencing cognitive and physical changes all benefit from the support of occupational therapists. The CSU has 2 master's level occupational therapy programs at CSU Dominguez Hills and San Jose State, which educate approximately 30% of California's occupational therapists. These programs have developed valuable community partnerships that provide students with service learning models. Faculty and students from Dominguez Hills operate partnerships with local community centers and rehabilitation clinics for veterans and survivors of abuse, while San Jose State operates on-campus clinics providing free and low-cost services to the community. As a result of the high-quality educational experience the graduates receive, they are greatly in demand by employers. 80% of San Jose State graduates and 95% of Cal State University Dominguez Hills graduates are typically employed 6 months after graduation. And as our population continues to age, this is an employment sector that is experiencing increased demand. The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics has projected a 24% growth in employment of occupational therapists between 2016 and 2026. Recognizing the important role of the university in meeting this growing workforce need, the state of California has granted the CSU authority to offer the occupational therapy doctorate. As a result of this legal change, Title V amendments related to occupational therapy doctorate degree programs are presented today for your information. These sections, first, specify that the CSU is authorized to offer OTD programs. Second, describe OTD programs and their purpose. Third, list degree requirements. And fourth, identify criteria for admitting applicants. Amendments also reflect changes in California Education Code sections cited in OTD Title V regulations. I will now return the presentation to Dr. Blanchard for his closing thoughts.
Thank you so much, Allison. As the CSU strives to meet the projected future workforce needs of California, we must really ensure that the degree programs we offer are relevant to students' interests, reflective of the state's diversity, and responsive to societal and workforce needs. With the authority granted by the state to offer the occupational therapy doctorate degree, campuses will be able to continue providing opportunities for these students to become workforce-ready graduates whose skills and knowledge contribute to California's future. The Title V amendments presented to you today, and which will be presented again as an action item in March 2020, will ensure that the regulations are in place for our campuses to offer these new degrees. Chair Taylor, this concludes our presentation, and we stand ready to answer any questions or hear any comments from the board.
Thank you very much for your presentation. Members, any questions on this? Let's face it, we're all going to be senior citizens one day and probably need an occupational therapist. So let's get them trained now. Trustee Fong, followed by Trustee Sebelius.
Thank you for your presentation, and it's really wonderful that the legislation was signed into law. And I have a question. Do we anticipate where the occupational therapy doctorates will be offered, at what campuses?
Right now, San Jose State and Dominguez Hills are ramping up their master's level programs in anticipation of the Title V changes and a new executive order. So we'll start with those two. We would anticipate in the future we might have other campuses in a similar manner. When we started the Doctor of Audiology programs, we started with a set of universities, and now this coming year, in March, we'll have a university that's going to ask to propose one as well. So we feel in the future other campuses will join in.
Trustee Sebelius.
So we are proposing this Title V change in response to legislation that passed last year. So I wonder whether we have a mechanism like we do in the statewide academic senate when we have a first reading resolution, what we call information item, to pass a waiver when we want something, either when there's a need to move expediently or when it's, let's say, a formality to effect the change. Is it appropriate maybe to seek a waiver for this information item and we can pass the Title V changes today?
I don't know if legally we can. Maybe Ms. Wren, you can explain for us.
We need actually to legally post this for 45 days. And so we're in the process of doing that. And we will then have our 45 days of legal notice before the March meeting. But thank you for the suggestion.
Great. Thank you. When will the first graduate actually come out of one of these programs? 2 years, 3 years?
So if we started in 2020, probably close to 2025.
Okay. Yeah. Well, for my sake, that's good timing. Thank you. All right. Any other questions on the occupational therapy doctorate? Hearing none, can I get a motion?
So moved.
Have a motion? Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? All right. Even though it wasn't an action item, we just voiced our support. Excellent. All right, let's go to item number 3, which is a discussion of another information item pertaining to research, scholarship, and creative activities. That's a lot of stuff. This item could easily take 5 hours, but we're not going to give you that much time, Ranesh. So let's move forward to an item that will be presented by Ganesh Raman, Bill Covino, and Mr. Raman, I believe you begin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair Taylor. Research, scholarship, and creative activities are intrinsic to the CSU. These hands-on opportunities provide a high-quality education where students can engage with course content, develop and test hypotheses, and push boundaries. The CSU is distinctive for making this high-impact practice available to undergraduate students through an experiential model in which students work with faculty scholars on research and creative projects. During this presentation, we will be sharing examples of research, scholarship, and creative activity in the CSU. While the topics and campuses vary, what unites our efforts is a singular focus on our university's mission to advance student success and equity, enhance faculty excellence, and address the pressing needs facing California and its diverse communities. Our research, scholarship, and creative activity efforts are supported through external grants, contracts, and awards. In 2017-18, the CSU received nearly $648 million in external funding, an increase of $58 million over the previous year. These external funds are distinct from state general funds that are allocated to the CSU for operational expenses. They also include approximately $78 million to cover the institution's facilities and administrative costs, also known as indirect costs. I would like to highlight two specific sources of funding CSU campuses received in 2019. These awards support the CSU's mission of ensuring equitable opportunity for all students, regardless of their background, to pursue science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM fields and careers. 3 CSU campuses, Long Beach, Northridge, and San Francisco, received Building Infrastructure Leading to Diversity, or BUILD renewal grants of more than $54 million over the next 5 years. These funds will allow these campuses to continue their mentoring and training programs aimed at supporting historically underrepresented students in preparing for and pursuing biomedical research careers. The second award is from the California Education Learning Lab, a new grant-making program administered by the state. Impressively, every winning proposal featured a CSU campus. 6 campuses, Fullerton, Humboldt, Los Angeles, San Luis Obispo, San Marcos, and Sonoma, and partner institutions will receive a combined $7.5 million to create and redesign STEM online courses. These online courses will increase engagement and success of lower division students, and particularly those from historically underrepresented communities. The CSU's impact on California is evident through the work of our 10 multi-campus affinity groups. These groups are detailed in the agenda item and include a new multi-campus consortium that connects all 23 campuses in STEM education and research. CSU affinity groups address the most pressing needs facing California, conducting research on a breadth of topics from agriculture and biotechnology to ocean and desert life. For example, the Agricultural Research Institute, or ARI, is helping California's agricultural and natural resource industries prepare for the challenges related to climate change. Facing a future that will likely include less fresh water, researchers are developing farming methods to use saline water to irrigate pistachios and breeding lettuce crops to grow under high heat. At ARI, undergraduate CSU students are directly involved in more than 85% of research projects. Indeed, all 23 campuses are tackling the most pressing issues in California and its communities. For example, CSU Long Beach is one of 3 members of a public-private partnership that is developing the new Long Beach Accelerator, the first tech startup accelerator in the city. The accelerator is attracting top entrepreneurs and investors, supporting the economic development and growth of the Long Beach community. Research scholarship and creative activities also enable the CSU to maintain faculty excellence by recruiting and retaining top-tier world-class faculty. Alongside students, CSU faculty stimulate innovation and create new knowledge, keeping CSU curricula at the leading edge of its respective disciplines. Research also provides CSU faculty an opportunity to demonstrate leadership in their discipline through peer-reviewed awards, presentations, performances, and publications. For example, CSU Fullerton history professor Dr. Jamila Morpevu and 2 graduate students presented data at a conference in Washington, D.C. related to her Mapping Arts OC project. This project gives students an opportunity to explore the city of Santa Ana's past and present simultaneously by conducting interviews with artists and community members to reveal the history surrounding the city's 20 public murals and utility boxes. Using the resulting data and with support from the California Humanities, Dr. Morpevu and her students were able to share the findings with a wider audience through the creation of a bilingual mobile walking tour and a coloring book designed for a K-5 audience. For the current academic year, Dr. Morpevu received a prestigious Woodrow Wilson Career Enhancement Fellowship. Research and creative activities also help ensure that students receive a cutting-edge education by connecting research to classroom learning while helping students develop a comfort with complex situations. And it helps foster the skills, knowledge, and networks needed for future graduate and professional study, as well as future careers, giving CSU students the edge when applying in competitive fields. It's now my pleasure to welcome President William A. Covino of Cal State LA, who will share the story of Ariana Gonzalez and how research enhanced her overall academic experience and career prospects. President Covino?
Thank you. Ariana Gonzalez graduated with honors from Cal State LA in 2018 with a Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry. As an undergraduate student, she engaged in research that shaped her career goals and enriched her experience on campus. She was part of the team at Cal State LA that conducted research on diagnostic devices, including glucose monitors. This topic is immensely personal for Ariana. At age 7, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and her life changed. Here is the way that she explains it. Quote, "I still remember the day, walking out of my pediatrician's office, holding my mom's shaky hand and seeing her watery eyes and worried facial expressions. We walked across the street to the pediatrics unit while I tried to convince my mom to take me home instead. I was admitted." Unquote. So diabetes, of course, brings many challenges, but for Ariana, it also sparked learning and fueled her deep interest in and passion for a career in medicine. Cal State LA provided Ariana an opportunity to channel her interest and passion into research on glucose sensors. That research focused on how these life-saving devices can be made more accessible to communities where access to quality health care is lacking. Ariana fabricated and tested various glucose sensing devices using simple materials, paper, thread, tape. That invaluable experience not only shaped her view of her future, it provided her with an opportunity to help find solutions for real-world problems. She was recently accepted into an osteopathic medical school. She's determined to become a physician and help address existing health disparities. Ariana's experiences at Cal State LA as an undergraduate who participated in research have played a pivotal role in her life. And let me add, I regularly ask our undergraduate students why they chose Cal State LA. And the students and this is true, I'm sure, across the system, the students in the sciences almost always say the opportunity for undergraduate research. That's why they chose us or one of our sister campuses instead of some other places in the neighborhood. The opportunity for undergraduate research. And Ariana is just a great example of a personal story turning into a professional passion and career. So thank you.
Thank you, President Covino, for sharing Ariana's experience. Through research, scholarship, and creative activities, CSU students and faculty are advancing our understanding of the world while meeting the needs of California and beyond. As we work to achieve our student success goals, and particularly our goals to close equity gaps, we must continue to actively support student participation in these activities. Chair Taylor, this concludes our presentation. We would be happy to answer any questions the board may have at this time.
Thank you, Dr. Rahman and President Covino. And President Covino, please express our appreciation for Ariana. She was here in November, members, but our schedule got sideways, and so she wasn't able to join this presentation, which was pushed over to this month. But we do much appreciate hearing her story because in many ways, it's the perfect example of the highest form of impact the CSU can have. Marrying faculty research with undergraduate discovery, partnering, mentoring, is the best example of what a university can be. On the other hand, my challenge is, as you know, Dr. Rahman, at some research universities, faculty research is done in silos without undergraduates, And very often, faculty do the research in a way that's removed from the teaching of undergraduates. In fact, the highest form of achievement at some research universities is the ability to buy themselves out of their teaching responsibilities, pushing that off to other individuals, separating undergraduate academic achievement from faculty mentorship. How do we ensure that Cal State continues to produce more Arianas and not that other version of the research university that, frankly, separates itself from the, I think, real mission of why we exist?
So a lot of the research that's done in the Cal State system is clearly intertwined with teaching. It's the experiential component, and it contributes both to student success and faculty excellence. And as you pointed out, there are many types of research occurring at universities. There is the philosophical inquiry, searching for the truth. You also have fundamental research that builds the foundation for future disciplines. And we also have a lot of applied research in the CSU that's directly connected to pedagogy and student-centered active learning that impacts education, and also applied research that connects to industry innovations. And lastly, a lot of CSU research is public impact research, but there's a very significant impact on California's communities. One good example of this is the research that we do on climate change. Many of the R1 systems tend to focus more on science and engineering and technology solutions in climate change, but our climate change solution has all dimensions. There's the social justice piece, there's the community engagement piece, there's the policy piece, there's an education piece. We also have the science, technology, and engineering.
So I don't doubt the value of it and the veracity of it. My question really meant to get at how many of our tenure track faculty take time off from teaching in order to pursue research? Because my previous experience has always been when they do that, you got to backfill with somebody to teach the classes. And very often it's adjuncts who are road warriors and can't be involved in the lives of students and undergraduates as mentors, quite like a tenure track faculty can.
That's correct. So in the CSU, unlike the R1s, the standard teaching load is 4 and 4. And faculty who do buyout of research, they are covered by direct costs that are in the grant, not indirect costs. These are, so you have grant reimbursed buyouts at the grant reimbursed rate. And so these, and those, and the faculty are still very much involved in the classroom, and a lot of the research connects to what's happening in the classroom.
So how many faculty do we have that buy out research? We don't, our tenure density numbers are not good.
Yeah.
And when tenured faculty now are not engaged in the classroom, it only exacerbates an already challenging problem.
Yeah, so I don't have a exact number for you for how many of our faculty buy out from research. And you can look into that. But if you look at us as a system, the number of faculty who have active grants is relatively small compared to R1 systems. So that number is not extremely large.
All right, I'd love that number if I could. Thank you. Trustee Sebelius, followed by Trustee Carney.
To that point, of course, Trustee Taylor, my dear friend Peter, maybe you consider this anecdotal evidence as a faculty member, but I do not know, and I think there are very few faculty members in our system who buy out their complete teaching time.
I'm okay with that. I just want to know how many.
Right. And we have, I would say they're very, very few, except for the rare sabbaticals where faculty member leaves for a semester or a year.
Yeah, sabbaticals don't count.
Yeah.
That's
faculty
different.
members typically buy out one course. If they're super successful, maybe 2 courses. But they're still in the classroom from semester to semester. And as Dr. Rahman has said, the teaching load in the CSU is extremely high compared to similar institutions. I know of colleagues in the UC who teach 3 courses over a year, over 2 semesters,
Yeah,
and we
I'm
teach
I'm
8.
familiar with that workload.
So you
Don't get me
got
started.
to know that research does take time, and it needs it needs a buyout. And I can assure you that if the CSU faculty do get opportunities to buy out their teaching time for research, they're by no means taking out of the classroom.
Thank you for that assurance. I'd still like to see the number.
And
Trustee
we'll
Carney.
get it to you.
Thank you. Thank you for this report. It's really very interesting and kind of inspiring, actually. We receive quite a lot of money to increase diversity in STEM fields. What do we know about outcomes from this money?
Yes, so we are tracking these outcomes, and so there are both direct impacts and broader impacts. And so for example, one of the grants that a campus received for increasing diversity in STEM, actually in the first round trained about 200 students, and 138 participated in undergraduate research, and about 500 students made presentations, and the result was that 61 students were placed in postgraduate programs, 14 in graduate programs, 7 in research positions, and 7 were awarded postgraduate fellowships. This was during the first phase. Now we do have a renewal grant, and we expect the impact there to be even more significant because the programs have built momentum. So,
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other questions, comments, thoughts, concerns on this particular matter? Again, it's an information item, so no vote today from anybody. Okay, well, very well. Thank you very much, Dr. Rahman and President Covino, for your thoughtful comments on this subject. Much appreciated. Okay, we'll now move on to, where did I go? Yes. Item number 4, which is an action item seeking committee approval for a resolution regarding the admission requirements on quantitative reasoning, the new version. Please note that this is not an action item amending Title V. That had been the previous proposal. What's before you today is a different version, staged over a period of years, and so the amendment to Title V will not be taken up for vote today. The item will be presented by Provost Blanchard, James Minor, our Assistant Vice Chancellor, and Marquita Greneau-Shire, also an Assistant Vice Chancellor. Dr. Blanchard, please begin.
Again, thank you, Chair Taylor. Today, we are presenting for board action a proposal to approve a phased implementation to modify the CSU's admission requirements. The modification would require incoming first-year students beginning in fall 2027 to have completed one additional course of quantitative reasoning in order to be eligible for admission. At the outset, I want to once again emphasize that at its core, this proposal is about equity. It is about taking bold yet measured action to address disparities in academic preparation so that incoming students from all backgrounds arrive at the CSU prepared to be successful and to achieve their academic and professional goals. This proposal will expand authentic access and promote equity by removing impediments to success at the CSU and in the careers of today and tomorrow. And it is a critical and necessary step toward achieving one of Graduation Initiative's 2025 most fundamental goals, eliminating equity gaps in degree attainment. This proposal is the result of several years of deliberation, consultation, and careful data analysis. As you know, it originated from a 2016 report issued by our Academic Senate, the governing body and the official voice on academic matters for our more than 27,000 faculty members. The task force authoring the report included then Lieutenant Governor Newsom, the Deputy State Superintendent of Public Instruction, University of California and California Community College leaders, prominent executives from the technology industry, and CSU faculty from a wide range of disciplines, faculty who are committed to the success of all of our students, and importantly, those who are most familiar with the academic needs and challenges of our students. It should be noted that just 2 months ago, during its November plenary meeting, the Academic Senate reaffirmed the task force's recommendation to modify the first-year admission requirements to include an additional quantitative reasoning course. The proposal has the unanimous support of our 23 campus presidents, as well as the leadership of a number of innovative school districts and county offices of education. It has benefited from several months of discussion in this chamber and from hearings both here and in Sacramento. And it has been strengthened in response to feedback from trustees and the public. To concede that disparities in high school preparation are acceptable and inevitable is frankly, in my mindset, offensive. Today, our students arrive at the CSU differentially prepared. We see this reflected in their choice of major and in unit accumulation, in their persistence, and in their degree completion. Our efforts today and in the years to come seek to eliminate this long existing differential in order to empower student success. You may ask, why do this when only a small percentage of the entering class is affected? And our answer has been the same and relatively simple, because at CSU, every student matters. We have heard much about whether California public school districts have the capacity to address these disparities, and we have listened. However, we cannot accept that the disparities in preparation that exist today in California's elementary, middle, and secondary schools must be the destiny of those students who would be part of our 2031 graduating class and beyond. The CSU simply cannot and will not stand idly by. Today, we come to you with a proposal that focuses the CSU's resources and efforts squarely on eliminating these disparities in preparation. And we hope that the voices that have been raised in our discussions this past year will ask the same of our students, our districts, and our schools. Actions, indeed, speak louder than words. Together, we really can prepare California's students for success. And together, we must. I will now turn the presentation over to Dr. James Miner, Assistant Vice Chancellor and Senior Strategist, who will discuss in more detail the current and future significance of quantitative reasoning preparation. Dr. Miner.
Thank you. I want to start by reiterating the what and why of quantitative reasoning. As illustrated on the screen, quantitative reasoning is the confluence of critical thinking, mathematics, and real-world application. It's a cross-cutting skill that applies not only to STEM, but also in art, history, music, and in fact, every discipline. Simply put, quantitative reasoning is the ability to think and reason analytically and intelligently about numbers, measurement, capacity, probability throughout one's personal and professional life. Without question, quantitative reasoning skills are absolutely essential for 21st century learners and to be successful in the emerging and changing future of work, no matter the job, no matter the business sector. Yes, the CSU has experienced success in enhancing the way we support and teach incoming students. We have worked hard to meet students where they are, and early results indicate that the recent reforms to developmental education are game-changing for advancing equity and student success. These improvements, though significant, cannot alone compensate for the lack of quantitative reasoning skills developed in high school. And as Dr. Blanchard stated in his opening remarks, insufficient preparation in quantitative reasoning is an impediment to student success once they arrive at the CSU, and it negatively impacts their selection of college majors and careers. Through our data sharing partnership with the California Department of Education, we have been able to review the records of 63,198 first-year students who enrolled in fall 2018. Approximately 59,000 of those students graduated from a California public high school and were matched with the CDE data. Of those students, just over 3,200 did not meet the proposed quantitative reasoning requirement. 845, 1 in 4, of these 3,200 students did not return to the CSU for their second year. And of those students who did not return, 73% were African American or Latinx. Academic preparation matters. Improving academic preparation will increase access for students to a greater range of majors and career paths. It will support student success in the classroom and the evolving workforce and in daily life. And it will improve a student's likelihood of staying enrolled and earning a degree. It potentially means retaining those 845 students instead of enrolling them with the knowledge that they will not be successful, in large part due to a lack of sufficient quantitative reasoning preparation. Access, success, and completion. That is what this proposal is about. That is what the CSU is about. As this slide indicates, the CSU is not alone in recognizing the importance of greater quantitative reasoning preparation. Public comprehensive universities in these states listed on the screen already have admission requirements comparable to the CSU's quantitative reasoning proposal. Many have had these requirements in place for years. Some, like Texas, adopted these requirements more than 15 years ago. While California is recognized as a national and international leader in public higher education, a failure to act now could cause the state to lag behind the nation in our ability to prepare students for post-secondary success. It is important to note that the institutions represented across the states on this screen are not flagship research universities. They are primarily master's degree granting institutions, public universities, including those that serve student populations that look much like the CSU. These include institutions, for example, like Georgia State, a national leader in student success, as well as Bowie State University, Compton State University, the University of Maryland Eastern Shore, Morgan State University, 4 historically Black universities that are a part of Maryland's public higher education system. Not to mention UMBC, or the University of Baltimore, Maryland County, led by Dr. Freeman Hrabowski, a national leader for producing STEM graduates of color. Academic preparation matters for college success. This proposal seeks to ensure that all students benefit from the necessary academic preparation that will allow them to access the majors and careers of their choosing, and that will allow them to be competitive not only nationally, but also internationally. I now turn the presentation over to Dr. Marquita Greneau-Shire to review the proposal, its implementation plan, and the action that is before the board today.
Thank you, Dr. Miner. To ensure that every student has the foundational learning necessary for access and completion, the CSU is proposing to expand the A through G requirements that determine minimum eligibility for first-year admission to include 1 additional quantitative reasoning course beginning in 2027. The proposed requirement could be fulfilled with a high school science course, an elective with a quantitative reasoning foundation such as personal finance or computer science, or a more traditional mathematics course beyond Algebra 2. It could also be met with a quantitatively based career and technical education class, or through dual enrollment in partnership with a community college. Students would take the next appropriate quantitative reasoning course to strengthen preparation for college-level coursework and career interests, and it would be recommended but not required that students take the course in their senior year. As outlined in your agenda item and in previous presentations, the CSU would support students and schools through additional investments in teacher preparation, curricular development, student outreach, and enrichment. Today, we recommend approval of a phased implementation plan. As you see on the slide and in your agenda item, this action will start the proposal's implementation process and keep us on track for a fall 2027 effective date. The required Title V amendment will be submitted to the board for approval by spring 2022. In the interim, the Office of the Chancellor will report to you in March 2021 and January 2022 to indicate our progress toward doubling the number of STEM qualified teachers prepared annually, as well as our outreach efforts. In addition, these reports will provide clarity regarding student exemption to the proposed requirement, as well as detail the charge, role, and composition of the steering committee that will be formed to provide guidance related to the proposal's implementation. And the CSU will commission an independent analysis of the planned implementation and report to you regarding potential impacts of the proposal on high school students' enrollment in the CSU. Now I'll return the presentation to Dr. Blanchard for his closing remarks.
Thank you, Dr. Grinnell-Shire and Dr. Minor. The action we ask you to take today is simultaneously bold and measured. Your approval of this phased implementation plan will allow us to begin the implementation process and to stay on track for a March 2027 effective date for this critically important step toward addressing disparities in academic preparation and eliminating equity gaps. This plan also gives the opportunity to carefully study the proposal's implementation as it is rolled out, and to substantiate our findings that the students we seek to help will not experience negative impacts. If implementation process improvements or intended consequences are identified, this phased plan gives us the time and the flexibility to take corrective action. Indeed, action is the most appropriate term here. Approval of this phased approach will enable us to take action to address disparities in academic preparation, disparities that exacerbate equity gaps, that follow students to the CSU and negatively impact their academic and career options. The consequences of not acting to maintaining the status quo are very real. At the CSU, they are quite evident in lower retention rates and lower four-year graduation rates. And they are the lived experience of the more than 800 students annually who will not return for a second year. And this is after a lot of wraparound support for these students to try our level best to ensure their success at the CSU. Action today recognizes the critical impact of quantitative reasoning preparation on student success, and it continues the innovative and necessary work to address disparities in preparation for the benefit of our future students, and perhaps most importantly, for the benefit of the state of California. Thank you so much for your careful consideration of this proposal, and we are prepared to answer questions or hear comments that the board members have at this time.
Great, thank you very much for your presentation. Members, because this is an action item today and as a preliminary step to get the discussion going, I'd like to first take a motion on the proposed resolution.
So moved.
Motion by Trustee Sebelius, seconded by Trustee Garcia.
Steinhauser.
Steinhauser.
We're German, it's all the same.
Sorry, the S's are next to each other. I get confused. Sorry. Steinhauser and Garcia, thank you very much. Now, comments, questions, or discussion from members of the board. I have Trustee Steinhauser, Garcia, Carney, Kimbell, McGrory. Hold on, man, I'm going to write all these down. McGrory, Eisen, and just about everybody. Okay. We'll start with Steinhauser and work our way around.
Dr. Blanchard and team, thank you so much for what you've done over the last year plus. And you're much kinder than I am as a superintendent. When we did this implementation, we did it in 4 years, and we had no negative impact. In fact, we had the complete opposite. We've had a positive impact. 60% of my youngsters last year met the 8th UG, which is drastically higher than it was before we had the 4-year math requirement, and qualitative reasoning, because we actually allow all the courses that you have set forth. And we're on track to hit 70% within 2 years. And as you know, my district's a very poor district. 70% of the kids are in poverty. And so I see this as our moral imperative. This is a civil rights issue, this is an equity issue, and it's an economic prosperity issue for the state of California. So I pledge 100% support on whatever I can do to help my K-12 partners, and I'm glad Superintendent Thurman's here, because this didn't cost me a lot of money to do it. It does take will to change things and to do the right thing for our youngsters, and I'm proud of my folks, I'm proud of my board that took the bold stand several years ago to do this. And I'm retiring, so I have a lot of free time on my hands to help my K-12 partners to understand how this can be done. Because as we heard from our speakers, it is about support. It is about building bridges, about building teams. And so I am so thankful for this because this is the right thing to do. And I understand how change is hard. I totally get it after 18 years as a superintendent. But the only reason we've been able to do the things we have in Long Beach is because we took those bold steps. And we had people mad at us, and we had people who said it was going to have negative consequences. But when we, just like you said, Dr. Blanchard, when we saw there could be a negative consequence, we changed action and we provided the right supports to do so. So there were no negative actions. So I commend everybody, and I hope the trustees can support this action today. Thank you.
Very well. Thank you, Trustee Steinhauser. I think I had Trustee Garcia and then Trustee Sebelius, I think. Oh, no. Okay. Roma, you speak on every ed policy item. Hold on. All right. Trustee Garcia, please.
First of all, I really want to thank Dr. Blanchard and your team. I know that this issue has followed you around for a long, long time. So I wanted to thank you for just being willing to listen, not only to the questions from the trustees, but also to the comments from the public and from various stakeholders, and for being so willing to work with us and to listen. So I personally really appreciate that. I think it speaks to the values of not only you all and your team, but to the institution. So thank you. First of all, I'm curious as to the makeup of the steering committee. If we have any idea of what stakeholder groups will have a seat at the table, and my special focus is, will there be student input in the steering committee? And it's okay if we don't have a specific group.
Who wants to take that?
Yeah, I'll start with it. I know that it's the individuals that the chancellor has made clear that he would like to see on the committee, and this is just the beginning in terms of making that determination of who they will be, will obviously include our Superintendent Thurman, that we would also count on the State Board of Education, Dr. Linda Darling-Hammond. We will look at superintendents. We know that we also expect that, as Chancellor White has pointed out, the chair of the Ed Policy Committee. Certainly, we want to ensure that there would be representation from our faculty as well as our students. But it hasn't really been finalized that recommendations will go to Chancellor White. And based on those recommendations, determination will be made as per who will be the total base of individuals to serve on this steering committee.
Okay, so my term ends in 5 months, so please write down that that I would like to see some student representation. And then, as far as the external study, what can we expect to see, I guess, as part of that study? And what I'm talking about is, will we be looking at K through 12's ability to comply with this requirement? We'll be looking at issues of access. As I mentioned before, I had an issue with the fact that we weren't looking at the number of students versus the number of courses available. Will we control for socioeconomic status, students from the same high schools, race, ethnicity, all that good stuff?
I'll start with the response. Those are all really good questions. And so we're going to commission an independent, nonpartisan organization to help us frame the study based upon the input, based upon all of our thinking up to this point. Because again, we want to make sure this does not have disparate impacts on our incoming students.
I want to add as well that I don't want to give the impression at all that this is like starting from scratch. Because it isn't. We have a very strong relationship that has already been formed with Superintendent Thurman and his staff. They have been very cooperative and collaborative in looking very carefully at data that they already have on hand. I can't begin to tell you the amount of months that both my staff members and his staff members collaboratively have poured over these data and reflected in what you have seen even today in terms of 2018, 2019 data, but also the ability for our team as well as the California Department of Education to be able to tell you right now today which schools would have difficulties and challenges, and which schools will need additional support. We have that information already at our fingertips, and that this third party will have the benefit of seeing and perhaps conducting a review on that which we already have lots of answers.
Thank you.
Very well. I've got a lot of trustees who want to speak. In order, trustees Carney, Kimbell, McGrory, and Eisen will be next.
This will be really short. First of all, I want to thank you for your commitment to our students, to our student success, and for persisting along this course while still listening to the concerns of people who care about higher education in California and do a lot of research in this area. And I think we're coming to a better outcome as a result of this. And frankly, when the governor, both in combination of last year and this year, committed over $1 billion to the preparation of teachers in STEM fields, it indicates, number one, that there's an enormous problem and that he's willing to put the resources in to get a solution. And I think this is critically important to the success of this proposal, that we have teachers who are prepared to teach courses well so that the benefit of, so that students actually learn quantitative reasoning. So I think this, this new approach that we're taking to this is right on, and thank you.
Very well. Let's go to trustees Kimbell, McGrory, Eisen, and Morales.
Thank you for the presentation. And I don't doubt at all your commitment, your passion to our students and equity. I still continue to grapple with a couple of issues. One, we heard from Trustee Steinhauser, and I absolutely think what the Long Beach School District has done is fantastic, commendable. But I can't help thinking it's apples and oranges. You had the power to require that quantitative reasoning. My concern is that the disparate effect. We as a CSU can recommend, we can cajole, we can, dangle a carrot or wield a stick. But I think at the end of the day, I don't know that we have the power to make, LA Unified School District, the largest school district in California, provide the courses that the students will need. So that, I think, is the core of my concern, is the power that we have to make them do something that is, I believe, is in the students' best interest. Also, I do want to see some more data. So you talk about the 845 students who have dropped out in the first year. And I believe you said 73% of them were African American. I'd like to know, of the 2,398 students who left, what percentage were African American, Hispanic students? That would give me a little context to how to compare. It doesn't mean a lot to me, really, that number, unless I have what the other group who did take the fourth year look like. So I would appreciate some more data like that. Thank you.
Okay, Nathan, are you going to respond to that?
Sure, I'd be happy to address the first question, and we can certainly follow up with the data you requested on the second. While I certainly think Superintendent Steinhauser is exceptional, I will say that other districts in California have graduation requirements today that already align with this requirement. And that includes 4 of the 5 largest districts in the state: San Diego, obviously Long Beach, Elk Grove, Fresno, San Bernardino, Oakland, and Stockton, for example. And at the other end of the spectrum, in a prior presentation, we also went through some of the smallest districts in the state that also have graduation requirements today that align with this. So I definitely think there is momentum with the adoption of the next generation science standards in particular, that districts already have other motivations to be moving in this direction.
Very well. I would point out, in response to your concern, Trustee Campbell, historically, K through 12 has expressed these concerns, but always managed to get there. 30 years ago, when CSU adopted A through G, they said they couldn't get there, but they got there. 20 years ago, when the AP requirement was adopted by UC, a number of people said they couldn't get there, but they got there. I don't think K through 12 is quite as ossified as some people think they are. Yeah, I got you on the list, Superintendent Thurman, absolutely. So I think K through 12 actually is capable of doing a lot. And with this $900 million for STEM teaching training, I think we can really knock the cover off the ball here at the K through 12 level.
I understand, but I think being capable and willing to do something, are two different things. So that is my concern.
Agree with you there. Let's go to Trustees McGrory, Eisen, Morales, and then Fagan.
This kind of reminds me of my experiences as a city manager. I feel for Chancellor White and the staff. We set a broad objective with the graduation initiative to try to get people through our system faster, to get them out into the labor force faster. We asked you to study all the barriers to doing that. You've done that in this case. You've made a sound professional recommendation, and all hell broke loose. It's amazing how this has divided the education community. And for me, it seems like a pretty simple recommendation. But I think we'll probably do like my old city councils used to do when faced with a controversial decision. You study it and continue it. Unfortunately, I really feel that you've done a great job with this, and you have looked at all the numbers and the statistics, and you have discovered that people, our students who have 3 years of math instead of 4, underperform. They fail at a greater rate. They don't graduate as fast. And then when you look at what the progressive school districts have done in this state, as you just mentioned, 4 of the 5 largest school districts have already done this. I talked to San Diego Unified. They did it 9 years ago, and their test scores are going up. They're graduating more students. They're much more successful in the educational advancement of their students. I can't help it that the other districts aren't doing that. But if San Diego and Long Beach, and Chris has spoken very articulately about his success, Oakland, Fresno, San Bernardino, all these districts have done this already. They're producing higher quality students as a result of their change. And Chancellor White said it very well at the last meeting. It's just intuitive. Our labor force is increasingly technical, increasingly more based on math, high technology, all this stuff. Why don't we want to make our students more successful by requiring 4 years of math? It just seems to me to be a pretty simple issue in that. And I recognize there's an access issue here, but we also have to address the issue of quality. We want high qualified students. The CSU system is taking off. It's on a high trajectory. School districts aren't going to hold us back. We're going to continue to be very, very competitive, increase our enrollment, but our students have to be well prepared. And if you send a student who is going to underperform in his or her freshman year, that's going to drain resources from the successful students, the students that are well prepared. And I think we have to look at all the collateral issues that surround this one. For me, this is a relatively simple issue. I was a first-generation college student. Freshman year was a tough year. I would not have wanted to go through that experience without the necessary credentials. And if you take a kid and he's going to underperform in that first year, he or she loses confidence, they're not going to be as successful. We're doing a disservice to admit people who are going to underperform the rest of their peers. And I just think it's almost a moral issue in terms of how we have to handle this. And I just think we need to be competitive. Setting more aggressive standards does not mean we're being discriminatory. I think we need to continue to provide broad access, but we need our students coming in their freshman year to be well prepared.
Thank you, Trustee McGrory. Trustees Eisen, Morales, Fagan, Abrego, and followed by Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the presentation, Dr. Blanchard, Dr. Miner, and your team. It was powerful, I thought. If you've ever been in the London subway, you've seen the signs, mind the gap, mind the gap. And I've always been impressed with the economy of those three words, because in those three words, you are first made aware that there is a problem, a danger, a concern. But with those three words, you are also given the responsibility with that awareness to do something about it, to mitigate the danger, to take action, to not have harm. Chancellor White, you made us aware on day one of your chancellorship that we had a real danger in this institution, an equity and performance gap that has been seemingly intractable, and a danger to our students and a danger to our institution. And you and your team have set about taking responsibility for solving that problem with all kinds of solutions that have been proposed. More teachers of color in our schools, the remediation Bermuda Triangle, as I have always called it, that trapped so many of our students, has now been eliminated. Nobody has ever suggested that this is the only solution or the perfect solution, but the problem is big enough. It is huge. It's a chasm, not a gap, that we have to come up with all the solutions that we can in order to fulfill our responsibility now that we are aware of the extent of this problem. So I commend you, Chancellor White, and all of the staff and the faculty who have taken on this. They are the ones, as Dr. Blanchard, that proposed this as a solution, not the solution, a solution to help our students. And I think we're all doing the right thing in pursuing it. Now, with respect to this delay, a proposal delayed is not a proposal denied. I want to be very clear about that. This board now has responsibility because we are aware. And in 2 years from now, or whatever it is, we need to take action. And we appreciate all the work that's going to be done in between. It will educate us, but we need to see solutions. It will not be enough for me, I don't know about the rest of you, for this steering committee to come back and say, this is not the solution. The problem is intractable. We're not going to do anything. I would like to see a solution. If it's not this, then I would hope that the steering committee would look at something that is in the realm of this. Solutions are what I'm now looking for. With respect to data, just a tiny caution there. It's a little bit ironic that our definition of quantitative reasoning includes the line that one of the things that you need to understand is the limits of quantitative methods. And data is not always the way to know whether you're on the right track. You know, my son is a Latinx sixth grade history teacher in Richmond, California. And I know that there is reason to believe that having teachers like him in the classroom will be beneficial to the students as they head out in their education and in their lives. But do we have data that proves that there is a causal connection, not a correlation? I'm sure there's a correlation. A causal connection between his presence in the classroom and the success of these students. We can't always look to data to tell us exactly, precisely what something is going to do. We have to look also to our hearts and our minds and the professionalism of the faculty and others who have studied educational methods. And then one other caution, we, the board, have often sort of launched proposals left it to others to go forward, and then assumed everything was going fine. We need to be vigilant. We need to ourselves make sure that as these reports come to us, we're not just, checking a box. We need to work with the staff, work with the new chancellor, I guess it will be then, to make sure that what we are doing today is going to be effective in the next 2 years. Anyhow, thank you again to everybody who has worked so hard on this. Thank you.
Let's go to trustees Morales, Fagan, Abrego, Kounalakis, followed by trustee Kames, and then Superintendent Thurman.
Well, I want to join the trustees who have thanked Dr. Blanchard and your team, and also the chancellor for all this work, and also your, I think, leadership in willing to accept additional comment and input. I really want to commend you for that and thank you for that as a trustee. I remain opposed to this. I think this is the wrong way to do it because of, I think, I was very articulated about who would be, I think, denied, frankly, the opportunity. And I want to center on Fresno Unified. I think that, because that's what I'm familiar with, and I know at the last presentation we had a focus on Fresno High School. It's about a couple of blocks from my house. And so I want to focus on why I believe that this is the wrong approach. And that is because the opportunities, for example, Fresno Unified has about 76,000 students or so. About 10,000 of those are English learners. Almost all of them are U.S. citizens of the English learners. The how would I say, the achievement gap for African Americans and these English learners begins in preschool. It is not at the high school. It's already there. And so I see that, and I see that because of the past 6 years, I either been the chair or the vice chair of the local LCAP advisory committee meetings, the parent, the DAC, the District Advisory Committee meetings. Committee. So that DAC, the District Advisory Committee, is composed of representatives of each of the schools, elementary, junior, and high schools of all of Fresno Unified. So I get an opportunity to firsthand talk to parents all around the district. And so one of the things I've learned, for example, is that only one school has 8 periods in high school. So we're talking about opportunities at high school. Only one high school, and what that high school is the high school that attracts the most accomplished academic students within Fresno Unified. That's who gets the opportunity to have eight periods. 7 is Fresno High, and that's up the block. Each of these high schools is for purposes of discussion, is about 1,000 students at each. It's different, but it's about 1,000. So there's 4 other high schools that have 6 periods. So English learners by law have to take a class that does not apply to any of this. It's mandated. Maybe the superintendent could take note of that. So already English learners are cut out from being able to, even if they wanted to take one of these courses, because they have to use it for a period. And most likely those students are not at the, how would I say, most accomplished high school where those students of Fresno Unified go. The only option, the better option would be, Fresno High, which has 7, but anyway, but that's limited because usually it's a neighborhood high school. So there's real limitations in the high school experience to be able to do this. So one other solution obviously would be if we could clone Superintendent Steinheiser, literally. That would be awesome.
Maybe some of that faculty research we learned about earlier. I don't know.
So, but that's, anyway, it's the last time I checked, it's not possible. But and then, he did mention that 70% of his students are low income. At Fresno Unified, it's 90%. And Fresno Unified is very representative of the Central Valley. That's huge. It's a huge, huge valley. And that is represented, by the way, of much of rural California, and much of urban low-income communities, which includes LA. So it's a huge, huge challenge in terms of the math for these students to fulfill, even if they wanted to, these requirements. So I think that going forward, we're going to do this study that we should have statistics or about where we are, where the K through 12 system is in the adoption and implementation of Common Core. Because Common Core, it gets at the heart of this. That's what it's supposed to be doing, and if we don't have that implemented at the school level, at the K through 12 level, there's not much we can do, frankly. Because that is what this kid's supposed to be doing, beginning at pre-K. So if we were successful in the implementation of Common Core, we wouldn't be talking here. We would have much better prepared students at entering the UC and the CSU. And then that's the other thing I would like to see is how a study about, and I believe there are studies that show the preparedness of students entering the CSU and the UC for the past, couple of decades. I think that will show us about where we're going, because I think I like to see the environment of where we are. So that's what I want to say. The other is, I think, in terms of the composition of the task force or the group that will be studying this, I would like to see people like Superintendent Jorge Aguilar. Besides Superintendent Steinhauser, I think it's really important for somebody like him to be part of this. But also Jorge Aguilar. Now, who's Jorge Aguilar? Why Jorge Aguilar? Well, he's the superintendent of Sacramento Unified School District. And he's also somebody who grew up in Parlier, which is a rural school about 25 miles, from Fresno. Rural communities, about 99% Latino, almost 100% low income. But he was an assistant superintendent at Fresno for a good 6 years. And he was in charge of a research arm, which included Long Beach, that studied, the academic and health status of all students. So he's familiar with the data. And I think it would be really, really useful to have Superintendent Steinhauser, Aguilar, and others, trying to work out what can be done because all of us would like to see our students succeed. So anyway, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Trustee Morales and Trustee Blanchard. Provost Blanchard. I'm assuming some of the information that Trustee Morales wanted doesn't necessarily have to be part of this task force. Some of the information I believe you probably already have. So if you will follow up directly.
We will.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Trustee Fagan.
So I want to thank Dr. Blanchard and his team for excellent presentation, research. You have my support. I think it's a very good idea. And I'm not an academic, but when I hear from the Academic Senate, I put a lot of stock in their views. Trustee Steinhauser's experiences in Long Beach, I think, are very significant. And this was one of the most hotly contested issues that since I've been on the board, and I actually had a very impressive individual come and meet with me for an hour to make the case about why this is a bad idea. And well, she was great and very articulate. I ended up not agreeing with her, and one of the questions was, well, you know, there's a number of districts that have been doing this successfully, and of course, Long Beach is the standout one. And so, reading the material and the conversation, the explanation about Long Beach not being a good example was that it's a complete outlier, and that Chris Steinhauser is just too good a superintendent, that he's been way better, he's been there longer, he's expert, nobody else can touch that. And so I'm uncomfortable with the idea that we are somehow giving short shrift and less confidence to the superintendents at these other districts. Answer Lily's issue about ordering people and getting them to go along with it. I think Peter's point about A through G and these things, once we have these as admission requirements, we can't order the districts to do it. But if kids are only able to get into the CSU because they have to meet these requirements, those changes will obviously come. The thing that I think is also impressive about this is Dr. Blanchard's response, and the chancellor, to the concerns from all these disparate stakeholders, and having put this off a bit to study it a bit more and ensure that we're doing the right things. But you have, at least mine, and obviously a number of other trustees, great support, and we have confidence that, you know, when you push people to achieve greater things and be ready for these experiences, they can do it. They will do it. And the fact that there are certain districts that may not be able to do it, and that we have these abilities to have automatic exemptions, takes care of that. And I would assume that part of the discussion on the study would be looking at how to mitigate some of these other issues. And the one thing I would hope is that after the study is done, or during it, if and I expect the answer is yes, it will happen, that the data developed will show that this is a reasonable and, in fact, very positive idea, that some of the stakeholders who are currently against this will be willing to accept some of the decisions and recommendations that come out of this study that support the idea, and that they will accept that and not reject the move forward regardless of what the data finds, so that we can all move ahead together. I mean, one of the great things about this, obviously, is we all, regardless of the side we're on, all have the same goal of having the best success for our students. I just had one quick question, a little quantitative reasoning question, actually, on the, and this is not a question to raise a negative view of this proposal, but when you talked about the 3243 students and 845 of them didn't make it through the first year, you're implying that there is a possibly causal relationship between the lack of that, fourth year. And I just wondered if you have any, are you making that causal relationship based upon that variable on any data? I mean, could there be other variables that were going on that could have resulted in the lack of success for those 845 people?
So let me just try to quickly address the last question. I don't think the implication is that the relationship is causal. I think we have been very consistent about that, but when we look at all students who arrive to the CSU from lots of different backgrounds, and even when you categorize those students, there is a direct relationship between the students who arrive with better academic preparation and how they perform in and through their first year of college compared to students across all demographic backgrounds, those students who arrive less prepared. So, and sure, students who arrive fully prepared depart from college. So we never make the case that that is the singular cause of departure, but it is a major contributing factor.
Okay, we'll go to Trustee Abrego, followed by Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis, followed by Trustee Kames, and then Superintendent Thurman.
Thank you for this report. I like the idea of pausing and generating additional information to consider this proposal. I am still having difficulty with the goals of the proposal. I understand and support the idea of quantitative skills for all our students in order to succeed in the global economy. But I'm yet not convinced when we make the assertion that quantitative skills in the last year of the senior year is going to close the equity gap. The issues of closing the equity gap are not based on 1 year of quantitative reasoning skills. The students that we serve come from very difficult environments economically and socially. The A through G requirements were supposed to close the equity gap or increase student success. So that intervention did not work. So I'm not of the opinion that if we increase admission standards, it's going to result in closing that equity gap. I think it starts a lot earlier, as Hugo mentioned. So one of the data elements that I would like to get is that at what grade level does a gap begin to widen between students of color and non-students of color? Is it the 8th grade, the 7th grade, the 6th grade? Perhaps that's where we should be thinking about improving the skills of students. I mean, quantitative skills, reasoning skills, for me, it would be bold if we were to start it across the curriculum in the 7th grade. That would be bold, because I do respect the idea that quantitative reasoning skills is a necessary talent that our students should have. But we need the data to find out when the gap begins and start to addressing that issue at that time. And I also like to recommend that the tremendous research that you have done has been impressive. But in California, which now the majority of our students are students of color, come from various environments and neighborhoods and schools. And I would recommend that we get the experts who are familiar with our students as part of the team to conduct the additional research that you're proposing. You can't apply principles outside of California where you have migrants, and I'm not talking about migrant workers, I'm not talking about migrant students who have to move neighborhood from neighborhood, start from school to school because their parents have to look for jobs in different cities and how that impacts their education. So we need to get the experts that are familiar and understand the student profile in California. And we have experts at the USC Center for Urban Education, the higher education from UCLA. There are experts there that understand our students. So I would encourage you to invite them to be a part of this committee to understand the proposal and the impact of the proposal on minority students.
Thank you, Trustee Abrego. Lieutenant Governor Kounalakis.
Thank you very much. So first, I just want to start by thanking all of the various expert organizations, student groups who came out to voice their concerns over this original proposal. I think it really made a difference. So thank you for your mobilization and activism around it. Obviously, I have been very vocal in my opposition to the adoption of a fourth year of quantitative reasoning at this point. And I'm not entirely in agreement with the way that the resolution is worded in the first section. But I want to say that I do intend to vote yes on this proposal. And the reason is that I think that the plan, the progress report, will be made up of in the second section is going to supply us with very, very important, much needed additional information. So when it's cited that a third-party independent analysis will be done, I just want to encourage the staff to reach out to the PPIC, the Public Policy Institute of California. I've been in direct conversations with them. They are very interested in helping to support this work. They have done similar analysis for the University of California when they looked at a third year of science. And I think they're exactly the right people to engage around this. And they have expressed their willingness to me personally to do so. I also want to talk about the other elements of what's going to be part of this study, because as has been said, I think that there is wide recognition that additional instruction in our K-12 system around STEM is something that we all should support, because we are in the dawn of the fourth industrial revolution, and I think that it's really clear that quantitative reasoning for our students is something that it can really boost their ability to succeed in college and in life. The question is, as you know, that we've really been grappling with is how best to go about that. And I strongly believe that we are not ready for an additional requirement now, and I'm not sure if we'll be ready in 2 years. But things that move us forward to be able to have a requirement like that will be good for our students. For instance, graduating more teachers out of the CSU students to go into our school system in the state to be able to provide that instruction, I think will be a very welcome change. I also believe that it's important that we look across the board at our public schools to see why the discrepancy where some school districts have lots of math teachers and others don't. And this process can perhaps shine a light on those inequities and help address them as well. So again, I just want to thank everyone who engaged. The speaker, Anthony Rendon, is not here today, but his staff has been extremely involved and active, and I really want to call out the speaker's office and thank them for their participation. And I think that we're taking the right step to be able to gather the information that we need before a vote takes place on this, and can also really help us get at the root of what I think everyone is interested in, which is why are our graduation rates, our 4-year and 6-year graduation rates at the CSU still so low, even though we're making progress, and what more can we do so that students entering in their freshman year are able to graduate within the 4-year window that I think should be everyone's goal. So thank you.
Thank you, Lieutenant Governor. Let's go to Trustee Kames, followed by Superintendent Thurmond. And unless there are any other pressing comments, members, we'll turn to Chancellor White for final comments before we decide to move forward on this matter. Trustee Kames.
Dr. Blanchard, I just want to start off by thanking you and your office. I know you've been working on this for months, and I've been emailing y'all with questions, and you've been answering me, and I just wanted to say I appreciate the communication. With that being said, I do have a couple of questions, and I just wanted to make a comment. So I guess I'll start with the questions. So when we talk about students meeting this requirement, my question would be, how will the CSU help those who are exempt or like waived off of the requirement because their school doesn't offer? I know that we currently have summer bridge programs and you know, those kind of things going, but my curiosity would be, how would we like require those students to take measures before starting off college? Because again, since their school doesn't offer you know, such a course, that would mean that, you know, they're also coming into the CSUs not necessarily having that information. So how would we help them if this was applied?
Thank you, Trustee Kames. It's a great question. And actually, there's sort of a variety of ways. There's some that are going to occur before the student even arrives. We have had in the CSU for more than a decade the early assessment program, where each of our 23 campuses working with their high schools in their service area are working directly both with teachers and with students that are moving into their senior year and using, for example, the Smarter Balanced assessment that students take in the 11th grade or scores from the ACT or SAT, any of those as indicators to provide guidance and direct support to students in their senior year to make that senior year meaningful as they prepare to transition to the CSU. Once students are in the pipeline, you mentioned programs like Summer Bridge. We also have the Early Start program in which students that are identified again as needing support. And one of the metrics today that can help that identify students that would need to participate in Early Start is the number of years of instruction in math or quantitative reasoning in high school. So we already have some of those interventions happening where students are taking credit-bearing courses in the summer in math or quantitative reasoning areas. And I have that wraparound service that extends not only in the summer, between high school and college, but also in their first semester as well. So there's a variety of ways, some before they actually transition to the CSU and some starting immediately after their senior year in the high school. So those are the sort of different ways that we'd be working with those students that perhaps would get an exemption at that point.
And I guess my comment would be, I remember back in high school, which wasn't that long ago, graduation was approaching, and then people were talking to me about things like loans and credit cards and all that. So I think when I first, saw the quantitative reasoning or heard about it, something that kind of in a way piqued my interest was some of the personal financing classes that would be offered. I guess my only concern with that would be, as someone who knew earlier on that I didn't necessarily want to be in a STEM field, but again, financial literacy and just literacy in numbers is really important. And I guess I would just want to ask if, in any way we would guarantee that schools who currently, you were talking about some districts who offer classes and who meet that requirement, will that be solely based on math? Or will they be able to offer other classes to those students who aren't necessarily interested, but do need help with those financial literacy classes?
So there's a number of ways that's identified in the proposal that the quantitative reasoning requirement could be met. It could be through a traditional mathematics course beyond Algebra 2, a science course, or an elective that has a quantitative reasoning basis. And all of these courses will go through a review process with the Office of the President of UC to determine that they meet that threshold. So personal finance might in fact be a course that is acceptable.
And if I may just add one other element that might help give you some context for the current situation. In our partnership with the California Department of Education and the data sharing we've done, 2 years ago in 2018, we were looking at the graduating class. 88% of public high schools in California had courses in the G elective area that meet this requirement. So there already is a vast majority of high schools in the state that have courses beyond traditional math and science courses that are in that G area that would satisfy this. And again, that was 2 years ago. Given the ramp up, given the supports we've been talking about, partnerships with our schools and colleges of education, I think we have the opportunity to build that capacity even more.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Kames. Superintendent Thurman, thank you for being patient. The microphone is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to all of my distinguished colleagues for your interesting remarks. A question was posed about why the gap exists and why the disparities. And I appreciate all the questions about minding the gap. I really do, because it is significant. And let us not fool ourselves. While I can't give you all the causal reasons for the gap, there's no question that decisions about money and race and racism have contributed to the gap that our students experience in this state and in this country. And it doesn't take an expert It doesn't take an expert to debate data trends to understand that. Simply put, the schools that have the fewest number of qualified teachers are also in the schools that have the highest percentage of racially segregated students and the students who have the highest levels of poverty. There are more than 24 school districts in our state who have the highest level of poverty, the highest levels of racial segregation, and the highest percentage of non-credentialed teachers teaching our students. I don't even know if I need to say any more about the gap and why it exists. I don't want anybody to fool themselves, but that by taking this action today, simply taking this action will not change that. It is absolutely the right thing to do to set the bar high. It is absolutely the right thing to do to say that our students need access to critical thinking. But to sit here and say that simply by making this decision, those percentages are going to change is irresponsible. I wasn't going to say a word today. I kid you not. I was just going to vote. But all the times that I've heard statements that need to be acknowledged, addressed, and checked provoked me. To sit here and say that the K-12 education system has risen to the challenge as if to suggest that it's all finished and done, when 50% of California students currently meet the A to G requirement. We have not risen to the challenge yet as it relates to A to G. And when you look at the completion rate for African American students and Latinx students, it's in the percentages in the ranges of 40s. So we've got a lot of work to be done. And don't get me wrong, no one here takes more responsibility for the challenges of our K-12 system than me. When I walked into this office a year ago, when I gave up a cushy job in the state assembly with the highest percentage of any elected ever in the history of the legislature, I knew exactly what I was walking into. A system that largely fails many of our students, in spite of the efforts of many who try to make it better. We have a lot of work to be done. And so let us not sit here and just suggest that just by voting yes today, that's going to make it all better. It won't. It takes real effort. It takes real thought. It takes real intervention. And I appreciate, Dr. Blanchard and your team, that you have paid attention to the details of implementation in terms of providing more teachers and more enrichment and outreach programs. They will be gravely needed. And the question was raised about where we see the gap in the greatest. It is around 8th grade for African American students. And while there's growth for many, we see a decline in the 8th grade. So let us go into this with our eyes wide open. This is absolutely the right thing to do. But everything that we do has the risk for consequence. We have the risk to not take action, but we also have the risk of unintended consequences that we must think about. We must think about them. As the only African American man serving on this body, I have to think about those consequences.
Time out. No, you're not.
Well, then I stand corrected. As one of a few number of African Americans who sit here, the only, as I understand it, Afro-Latino who sits here, I have to think about those consequences. I have to, because I know that I was not supposed to make it by statistics. By the statistics of this country, I know where I was supposed to be. I've known every year of my life. I wish I could say I was almost out of high school recently. I know for me it was a much longer time. But I've known since high school and before that by the statistics of our nation, that people who look like me and have my experience are more likely to end up in the criminal justice system, to end up in our higher education system. I have to think about that every single day. I have to ask tough questions every single day. And while I don't have the ability to control what happens in all of the 1,000 school districts, I'm putting it on my shoulders to say that we will get better as a K-12 system. We will get better. But that's going to take more than just words. That's going to take sweat equity and innovation and resources. Now, many statements have been made about the money that's been allocated for more educators in STEM, and I'm grateful for that. But let's think about it. We already have a teacher shortage in this state and in this country. And CSU is one of our best providers of educators, and I'm grateful for that. But if someone right now is thinking about becoming a teacher today, we know that we're talking about years. We're talking about years. Again, I appreciate the attention to detail in the implementation, as it's always been said that this would be a multi-year process. I've always appreciated that. And I've always said that this is the right thing to do. Aspirationally, we should set the bar high. We should absolutely set the bar high. And we do have great superintendents like Superintendent Steinhauser, who I have deep respect for your innovation. It's not that other superintendents don't want to do what the superintendent has done, but in many cases, they don't have the resources to do what has been done. And in that way, the superintendent is an outlier. 2 districts got mentioned today for having met this requirement, but those districts are struggling. You heard from my colleague who talked about Fresno Unified, and the other one is Oakland Unified. I didn't want to say anything bad about San Bernardino, but I hear you. I hear you for calling out that while some of these districts may have added the requirement, they too continue to struggle. So let us just be honest as we move forward. Let us move forward with our eyes wide open. Let us accept that there is risk, that many students could be impacted negatively, but let us accept that there is a greater risk to not take bold action to try and support our students. And I want this institution to dig even deeper and lower into the K-12 system, because we do need help. By every account, what California spends on its kids is far below most states in this nation and well below every state of our size. And we owe it to the students who are the workforce of tomorrow, yes, to give them critical thinking and STEM, but to spend the money on them to make sure that they have equipment that works. Did you know that when our kids take a standardized test right now, they learn materials like this, paper and pen. And when we ask them to take the test, sometimes they see that it's a computerized test. They see the computers for the first time on the day of the test. Some teachers spend 45 minutes just trying to get the computers to work. And so we have challenges that are systemic. We have challenges that need to be addressed. We have to be bold, but we must go into this with eyes wide open. And let us not fool ourselves that just by doing this, we will close the gap. It's the right thing to do. We set the bar high, and then we give the students the resources that they need to get that done. Thank you for your time, colleagues.
Thank you, Superintendent Thurmond. Members, with your indulgence, I'd like to turn to Chancellor White for some wrap-up comments, and then we will move to a vote.
Well, thank you, Chair Taylor, and I'd like to add my voice to the many who have expressed thanks to all of the voices in committed work that have attended to this issue over the last 3 years, but most intently the last 18 months or so, both within the California State University, but also from throughout California and the nation. And I also want to say thank you to Lauren Blanchard. And I want to say thank you to James Miner. And I want to say thank you to Marquita Greneau-Shire. And I want to say thank you to Nathan Evans. And I want to say thank you to Ed Sullivan. And there's so many other people that have worked in this building and on our system, on our campuses, and working, Tony, with your staff in analyzing the California data that has great power. I want to thank you for the professionalism that you've demonstrated and the stick-with-itness that has moved us to this point today. Ultimately, I believe that this phased implementation approach has proven to be and will continue to be really a shining example of how we work together in California on things that really matter for the benefit of our students, for the benefit of our society, in every aspect, economically, socially, politically, environmentally. I think Lauren Blanchard hit it on the head. This plan is simultaneously decisive and deliberate. But make no bones about it. We are committing to implement this plan in 7 years. And the implementation process will begin immediately. But this measured approach is carefully crafted to allow us the time and flexibility to continue to learn, to tailor the proposal so when it does take effect in 2027, it will be as strong and as helpful to our students as it could possibly be, and to the superintendent's point that we've looked around every corner and turned every stone for this unintended consequences and found solutions for them. But this is critical to do, as Dr. Miner emphasized. Academic preparation matters. And many around this dais have said the same thing. And quantitative reasoning matters even more tomorrow than it did yesterday, and certainly more the day after that as well. For all majors and for all careers, for all people in a California, for all that our governor so correctly has set his sights on. And our conversation has interestingly ebbed and flowed. At times, we were talking about the university's responsibility in this public education ecosystem. And other times, we expanded out into the public schools, the K through 12, and the UC and the community colleges. And I think that's been a very robust and positive aspect of this. But let's be clear that the CSU is not, when the master plan was signed by Governor Brown, Edmund G. Brown, it was not creating an open access university. It was creating a university for the academic top third of students in California. And because of the abilities of our faculty and the demand for our services today, we're actually a little bit over 40%. We're not open access. My friend Eloy in the community colleges likes to say that they take the top 100% of California kids. We shoot to take the top 1/3. But authentic access does matter at the CSU, and our board responsibility is about the CSU in this conversation today. And that is, authentic access ensures that they're not only admitted, but they get through, that they get challenged and supported along the way, and can enter those careers, those technical careers that are often more lucrative, to pull themselves and their communities and their families from a low income to a middle to above middle income, even to high income. As I said yesterday, and many of you weren't here on my state of address, and so I won't repeat it in depth now, but I might, just to keep up with Tony Thurman's length of his comments. That's true equity. It's what this proposal is all about. It's not getting in, it's getting out. It's not, and when you get out to do something that you want to do, that you have that training and education to do, so you can fly as high as anybody else in this society. I can't help but close with Christopher Reeve. So many of our dreams at first seem impossible. Then they seem improbable. But when we summon the will, it becomes inevitable. Board of Trustees, it's time to summon the will.
Thank you, Chancellor. We'll now proceed to a vote on the motion. It was previously moved and seconded to approve the resolution in your binders. At this time, I'd actually like to take a roll call vote. And I would ask the Secretary of the Board, Mrs. Kiss, to call the roll. I would remind folks that only committee members may vote at this time. Those of you who are not on the committee, who clearly have strong feelings about this, we'll get a shot at this in a few minutes.
Chairman Taylor, point of information.
Please.
There were some recommendations made by the public speakers requesting additional study on certain areas, application, eligibility. Now, does that require an amendment? How are we going to treat the recommendations that we made for additional data, recommendations as who's going to be in the team and so forth?
I don't think we need to add that. I mean, we can take that to heart and make sure that whoever chairs this committee ensures that whoever is the third party outfit that conducts the study takes that into consideration. They're good comments, I agree. I don't think we necessarily need to amend the motion, but Provost Blanchard, I believe, well, we've certainly got it on tape, so we can go back and check.
We've taken notes all along the way.
Yeah. I mean, they were good ideas. Great. Thank you, Trustee Abrego. Good point. At this point, I'd like to go to a vote of the committee. And again, if you're not on the committee, you'll get a shot at voting probably in about 45 minutes, give or take. So Trustee Kiss, boy, am I don't want to demote you. Secretary of the Board, Mrs. Kiss, will you please call the roll of the committee?
Yes, thank you, Trustee Taylor. Trustee Abrego. Trustee Carney.
Aye.
Trustee Eisen. Trustee Fagan. Trustee Farrar.
Yes.
Trustee Fong.
Yes.
Trustee Garcia.
Yes.
Trustee Kames. Trustee Campbell.
Yes.
Trustee Sebelius.
Yes.
Trustee Steinhauser.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor.
Aye.
Chair Day.
Yes.
Chancellor White.
Yes.
Trustee Taylor, the item is approved.
Very well. Members, thank you so much. As my calculations, we had about 12 hours of discussion on this matter. Obviously not finished, but we've certainly learned a lot, and more learning to come as this proceeds in the next year or two. So thank you for your indulgence. Thanks to the member of the audience for your thoughtful comments. Obviously, more to come. Chair Day, that concludes the Committee on Educational Policy.
Thank you, Chair Taylor.